Hello, wild, wonderful people, and welcome to Wild Talk. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all here today for a very special discussion. I will be speaking to three female CEOs about passion, purpose, their personal journeys, challenges, and leadership. Last week, I spoke to three business heads about the power of diversity and how building diverse teams can greatly benefit a business, not only from a profitability perspective, but also from a performance perspective. We all must feel empowered to show up, be heard, and to be included, no matter what gender, race, ethnicity, or culture we are from. So there is great strength that lies in our differences. And I think it's quite shocking to know that only a mere 3% of women actually represent the C-suite. Actually, there's more guys called John in the C-suite than there are actually women, which I think is absolutely astounding. So I'm really excited to welcome you all here. Three very, very special ladies. Helen and I have a bit of a personal story that we'll delve into a bit as well, when I was first ever starting Wild, and how she was incredibly kind to me. So I'm really honoured that you're supporting me here today as well. So let's start with passion and purpose. And I think just for the audience's benefit, it'd be really good if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your role. So I'm going to start with Helen.
Yeah, of course. And thanks so much for the lovely introduction, Emma. It's really lovely to be here today and part of this panel. So as Emma mentioned, we met a few years ago, actually, probably about a year after I set up my business. I'm the founder of hopscotch.work. We are a women's careers platform, now global, but originally born and bred in Dubai. And I started very much because of my own experiences. So I was actually 7 months pregnant at the time that I started the business, and I had a baby already, so they were quite close together. And I was just finding it very difficult to find flexible work, as were my peers, colleagues, and friends at the time. Anyone who's left the workforce for any period, for any reason, knows it can be very challenging to get back, number one. And secondly, to find work that's flexible enough to fit around any kind of other priorities or responsibilities that you might have. The platform has grown since then, so we're now an 80,000 strong network globally. We are now in Singapore, so we've been here for a couple of years, launched the business here about 18 months ago. And we work with multinationals and bigger regional companies to help them connect to this pool of talent through various different initiatives, opportunities, of course through jobs and work, and through our events, which we're now doing online pretty much like Emma is. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll pass the baton along, I guess.
Debbie, we know you're the CEO of Novo, and you were a guest speaker at one of my events last year, which was about courage. So it'd be great just to hear a little bit about yourself and the role that you do at Novo.
Well, thank you, and thank you again, Emma. It's really lovely to be here alongside Helen and Kelly. Yeah, as you said, I'm the CEO of Novo Cinemas. I've been here in the UAE for the last, coming up on July 1st, 7 years. And when I moved to Dubai, I had been living in the region. I'd been living in Bahrain for 8 years prior to that. A big shift. I moved from hospitality, events and tourism into entertainment, which was a bit of a leap of faith because I had no experience in entertainment. So I took over a brand, rebranded with my team from Grand Cinemas to Novo, with 17 locations across the region. We have around, I think just under 500 employees. And I'm very happy that we got to open our cinemas in Dubai yesterday. So the last 48 hours have been a little bit manic. My poor team have literally been working round the clock. to make it happen. So yeah, it's been quite an exciting couple of days for us at Nova. And I'm going to pass the baton on to Kelly.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here this morning. And great to hear the stories, and congratulations on opening the cinema again. It must feel such a relief and that little bit of sort of normality, which is great. So my story really starts, why I came to the Middle East now 17 years ago. I came as a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed cabin crew, and yeah, it was just you know, full of you know, wanting to travel the world and experience life. And you know, within sort of a couple of years living in Dubai, this sort of can-do attitude really kind of took a hold. And at 24, I decided to hang up my wings and start my own personal styling and shopping agency. So that was kind of where it began, offering personal shopping sessions to hotels, then working with individuals in the market. I think what's really interesting about the journey of an entrepreneur, which I didn't realize at the time, is that you evolve, you grow. Often what you start doing is not what you end up doing. And it's just this constant growth and learning phase. And if I look back now, sort of, you know, 15 years, I've since sold the styling agency. And you know, every year it's just sort of something better happens, something new happens, you know. So I worked my way up to traveling around the world with clients, worked with Saudi royalty, celebrities, like all sorts, which was amazing. But in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, I've really transitioned into helping others pursue their dreams of launching their own fashion styling business, and really taking it to the next step. Because what I found was then it wasn't just stylists that were coming to ask me questions about how do you do this and how do you do that, and really sort of taking the past 15, 16 years experience in business, personal branding, the style element, and really helping probably female entrepreneurs primarily build their personal brand within their business. And I'm, you know, really passionate about that now, more so than ever, just because of the climate and the current market conditions. And I really believe that, you know, as a business owner and an entrepreneur, if you want to stand out for your business, you need to be known for you. So that's a little snapshot of what I've been up to over the past nearly 2 decades.
Great, fantastic. Well, I want to go into passion. Now, I gave a talk actually last year about passion, because I think that we can often feel an incredible sense of pressure that we've got to have a passion, we've got to follow our passion. And the talk was inspired by Elizabeth Gilbert, the writer, about curiosity-driven life. And that, you know, some people are passion people and they pursue exactly what they want to do. And then other people are kind of don't really know, and they just live a curiosity-driven life, kind of quite like the hummingbird, but can take little bits from everywhere and then find their passion as they go along. So I'd like to ask Debbie, what's your thoughts about passion?
Listen, Emma, you're talking about something that I am passionate about. I always say that if you're going to do anything in life, you should always do it with passion or not at all. You need to put your heart and soul into it. So having passion, I mean, it evolves over time. It's in you, but it comes out through different experiences. You know, you know my background, that I had always, my passion when I was younger, I wanted to be an air traffic controller. And I didn't get to pursue that career because at that time they didn't offer for it. There weren't opportunities for women at that time. So, you know, I had a passion for one thing, and then I found a passion for something else. You know, I found passion for the travel and tourism and events industry, which was amazing, and which was my career for a very long time. Until then, I get opportunity in Bahrain, again, to do something slightly different. And I was thinking, every morning I go with my husband for a walk along Jumeirah Beach. So we do an 8K walk at 6 o'clock every morning, because it's good for the soul. the ocean gives you a lot of positivity. And we were talking and chatting, we were thinking what we've achieved in the last sort of 15 years. And if I think about when we moved to Bahrain, so I'm just going to take you back here, what can be achieved if you have passion and you believe in something. I met my husband in 2004 in the March. We got married in April. I had my son a year later. We bought a house. We moved to the Middle East, and I had my daughter. I'd gone through a divorce several years earlier. My daughter was 9 at the time. And I think, you know, they talk about stressful things to do in life, either getting married, getting divorced, moving house, having a baby, or trying a new job. And I pretty much took that whole pile and put it into one. And I did it because I had passion and I had belief in what I wanted to do, and I didn't think about it. So I think passion evolves over time. It comes through different experiences. So passion is absolutely critical to have in your life. Otherwise, yes, some people are quite happy to amble along everyday life, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, passion is so important, and you must, whatever you choose to do in life, if you choose to take a certain path, take it and do it with passion and put your heart and soul into it, because then you're going to get the results that you want to get out of it.
What's your views, Helen, about passion? I mean, how I did my very first event, wild event, with hopscotch, and it was great to have that support. As I say, you know, I met Helen when I was kind of at a rock bottom point, and Helen was incredibly kind to me. And you always remember people that really go out their way to help you. And she said, "I'm really going to support you. I'm going to really help you get this off the ground." But you're also a diversity and inclusion specialist, which is great. You're now in Singapore. But how did you find that passion, I guess, to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I can completely resonate with what Debbie said. I am a very passion-driven person. I really don't do anything unless I'm passionate about it. And my entire career has been, I guess, a series of handbrake turns based around passions, essentially. I mean, my career actually started out back in London in the early 2000s, and I was incredibly passionate about music at that time, and about broadcast, and about kind of different artists that I knew and loved. And I knew I wanted to get into radio, into that kind of angle of music. And anybody who knows anything about the music industry, particularly the dance music industry, will know it's very small. It can be a bit catty, and it's very, very hard to break into. There is a definite sort of level of snobbery there. So I moved to London, you know, a bit like you, Kelly, I imagine, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, looking for any opportunity. I worked slavishly for a couple of years to get into that industry. And, you know, by that, I mean literally working sort of 9 till 6 in the daytime. I was at the Discovery Channel at the time, and then literally going into Radio 1, which happened to be just over the road, in the evenings, at the weekends. I did all my holidays there. I mean, I was, you know, and I got into so much trouble for doing those sorts of things, but I still carried on. Because I knew it was where I wanted to be, and I just wasn't prepared to give up. And I thought, you know, if I give up, then that person who's just behind me snapping my heels is going to get that opportunity that I've been working for and that I really want to get. And I was incredibly lucky at 25. I got my big break for one of my idols at the time, who was working at Radio 1, now at Six Music, Marianne Hobbs. And she actually said to me, and it's very interesting that this sort of came up while I was working with her, she said, you know, exam grades, results, anything like that, certificates that you have on a piece of paper are worth absolutely nothing in comparison to the passions that you have. And I genuinely believe that. You know, I went from there to working in the advertising industry when I moved over to Dubai, and loved it, you know, but I found my kind of true passion when I had my first baby, as I mentioned in my introduction. You know, I've always, I guess, been about sort of helping people on the fringes move forward to where they should be and to get those opportunities, you know, whether it's in the music world, whether it's in, you know, diversity and inclusion now. And I still feel that sense of frustration on a daily basis, that this is still not the case for so many women out there. And women is kind of my angle right now, but obviously it affects so many other people as well, as you rightly said. I still feel that. It's the reason I get up in the morning, and it's, I'm also passionate about it for my 2 daughters. I feel it's completely unnecessary. And it's something that I genuinely want to solve. And, the day that I solve it will be the day that I no longer have a job to go to, but that's fine. I'll find something else, something else to do. So yeah, passion is hugely important to me. And it's just a given in my life that's the path that I will always take, I think.
And what about you, Kelly? You're very vivacious in character anyway, but what do you think about sort of passion and following that through?
I mean, we work a third of our life. So the point is, if we work so much, then why not be passionate about something? And I don't know if it was like a little seed that was planted when I was little. And I remember my mum getting ready for work and having to go for the bus. And I remember sort of saying to her, like, why do you go to work? Like, do you not like your job type thing? Why do you do it? And then I remember she said, well, it has to pay the bills. And I remember thinking then, God, it's a really dull thing to do, like just to pay the bills. I don't know if it was something then, but, for me, my passion was always about sort of fashion and style, but really helping people. And I think what's really interesting, that we've all got that sort of synergy in that your passion evolves. So again, it's this whole back to even the start of, even the personal journey. So what you're passionate to begin with open up doors, and then you become more passionate about other things. But the point is, you've got to have the passion. And I think what's really crucial is that then you acknowledge when that maybe passion is sort of, it's just kind of the fire is gone from the heart, maybe about that particular project or that particular role that you're in. And then it's like, well, what's going to fire me up again? What's going to get more passionate? Because it's hard to be passionate about the same thing for 25 years, so we've got to keep evolving. So I think that is probably something that's a key thread between all the stories, that we've all done kind of different things, but each of them have been passionate throughout your career, effectively.
Yeah, I think, we've all sort of said similar things, that embracing curiosity, you kind of quite happily fall into different passions and whatever else. But I mean, what do you think about, life's purpose, inspired to do your life's purpose and kind of believing in yourself to do that? I'm going to ask Helen.
Well, I guess I would kind of come off the back of what Kelly said there, in a sense of, I'm not sure that your life only has one purpose. And I think if that's where you pitch everything, then you're bound to be a bit disappointed, unfortunately, because, there are so many different purposes to your life. There are so many different hats that you wear as a person. I think particularly as a woman, family, kids, work, whatever it might be, those different avenues. I think you need to see it as a whole rather than having one specific purpose that you have to achieve. I mean, we talk a lot about careers, obviously, where passion is concerned, but there are many other types of passion as well. And you can't be defined by your work should not define you. It's part of you. It's part of the picture. And there are many other kind of life purposes that also form part of that picture. So it gives you a little bit of climb out as well. When one thing isn't going quite so well, you can delve into something else, whatever that might be, and kind of bring your energy levels up that way. So that's probably how I would see it in terms of, I have a work purpose, I have a family purpose, I have these different goals under different columns, if you like, in my little to-do list. But I don't define myself by one of those, I would say.
Yeah.
And what's your views, Debbie, about sort of following a life's purpose, having that sort of calling or that inspiration to do something?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to what Helen said, it's not just one thing. I mean, for me, my life purpose is, I mean, to have a work-life integration. So people talk about work-life balance, but it's how do you get the two to fit together? You know, my husband and my kids are very important to me. So family is very important to me, having time with family. My work's very important to me. My team, who are my second family, are very important to me. Helping others is important to me. Giving back is important to me. So I feel it's not just one, we don't have just one purpose. It's, you know, we have purpose on many different levels, and it's trying to balance all those things. But, you know, for me, to give back, to help other people, through, whether that's through mentorship or, you know, just a kind word, or having a purpose in life, wake up every morning, you know, and feel, yeah, today I want, what am I going to achieve today? What can I do to make life better for somebody else every day? Those are things that are important for me. So it's not just one thing. I think it's like Helen said, it's a combination of different things.
And what's your views, Kelly, about sort of life's purpose and believing in yourself? Because we're going to go on to personal brand, and I know that you've created a fantastic sort of course about personal brand and you know, believing yourself. But what's your views on life's purpose and self-belief?
Well, I think, again, what both the girls have said about, you know, we all need a purpose. We need a reason to get up in the morning. And that reason varies for so many people. And again, it evolves. So whether that's to make sure that the kids get to school and the work and the whole thing, it's all there. So, you know, I don't want to kind of rehash what they said, because they were really valid points, and I totally agree with them. I guess from the self-belief aspect, I think that's probably one of the biggest areas when it comes to sort of mentoring women, that I see this lack of confidence that women in particular have. And I think, you know, in order to succeed in the role that you're doing in your own business, you have to have this unwavering self-belief in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, then it's really hard to convince other people to buy your products and buy your services. And one of the things that I've seen, I work with a lot of mums who are maybe second career, that they've decided that they're now not doing what they're passionate about, and they want to go and do what they're passionate about, but they lack this confidence. And I think that's where it's about finding you know, tools and techniques that can really help develop that self-belief and confidence, because we all have days where we like, oh, I'm having a little wobble, and, you know, I'm not, you know, am I really capable of this, and the imposter and the little voices. And I think we acknowledge that they're there and go, thanks, but, you know, you can go back in your box now, and then get on with the things that will build your self-belief and confidence, you know. And I look back now and I think, you know, I must have had so much self-belief when I first started at 24. But then I remember thinking, well, if no one else believes, if I don't believe in myself, no one else is going to believe me. That really is what's going to propel yourself. So I really think, you know, having that, and if it means you need to read books or read affirmations that really kind of help you to build and instill that confidence, then, you know, it's crucial, so crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've done a few of these sessions now, and, you know, I think women hold themselves back with lack of confidence, and we talk about imposter syndrome and, you know, the fact that we can feel that we're, you know, a fraud. So it's really interesting that you touched on that as well. So on to the personal brand side of things. Debbie, what would you say about building, you know, a personal brand, and how would you say that you've done this?
Okay, it's a very interesting topic, because I've been actually mentoring a young woman in London. And one of the topics we've been focusing on is this whole personal branding. For me, it's, first of all, you need to establish what do you represent, who do you represent? Are you, for me, it's about remaining authentic and true to myself. Not deviating from that, not being something that other people think I should be. I want to make sure that my brand is about me and what values I have, what I stand for. I want to read this to you. I saw this quote yesterday on the female on LinkedIn, and it says, 20 things women should stop wearing after they've 30. 1 to 20, weight of other people's expectations. We so worry about what other people think sometimes. Yeah. Other people think we should be, how we should portray ourselves. Just be yourself. So for me, my personal brand is about being authentic, true to myself, being true to all the values that I hold dear and the things that I hold dear, and putting yourself out there. So, you know, how can you other people? I you know, as you know, Emma, I've been very fortunate that I've had great mentors in my life, and one particular amazing mentor, a guy, and I didn't always have self-confidence. When I actually probably was the opposite to Kelly. I had zero confidence in myself, and it took someone else to see that I had an ability, but to encourage that ability to come out and to build my self-confidence. So, you know, building that self-confidence, putting yourself out there to help others, doing things like this, you know, speaking on this webinar today about how we can share personal journey experiences that hopefully will help inspire other people. So that's part of, for me, it's, I want to be able to help other people. That's part of my whole personal brand. I think we all have a responsibility to give back, and I want to give back, help others who are in a similar position to me, perhaps when they were in their 20s, you know, lacking in self-confidence, the ability and the capacity and the power to be something that they really want to be. And I think as personal brand, remaining true to yourself and not trying to be something that you know. That's what personal branding is for me. And big events, helping others, mentorship are all part of my personal brand that I want to be known for. Thought leadership, because they're important for me. Gender diversity, very, very important to me. They're all the package of my personal brand.
That's great. And I love one of my favourite quotes is, no one is you and that is your superpower. I think that's, you know, we all need to be authentic and true to who we are. And I think as you do get a little bit older, you do settle a little more, you know, a little bit more comfortable into that. So Helen, what's your view about kind of personal brand, and how have you built brand Helen?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it goes slightly back to the confidence thing that we've all kind of touched on. From the outside, somebody might look super confident, but you should never judge, you know, somebody's outside by how you're feeling inside. There should never be a comparison there, because actually, you know, what people are trying to do generally is put their best foot forward at any one particular moment. I think when I started Hopscotch, there was a huge kind of leap of faith essentially between you know, what I wanted to do and what my background and experience was. I'd never worked in the women's space before. I'd never been to a women's conference. I just knew that I felt very passionately about it, and I think I built my brand and I guess my personal brand around that, because I'm not afraid to take a leap off slightly into the unknown. I think you build the bridge as you go. Like, that's how you move forward, and that's very much a big part of my personal brand. It's encouraging other people to also have that confidence in themselves to do the same thing, and to look at, you know, how potentially they can do that, what resources they can put on. And certainly from a Hopscotch perspective, you know, all the kind of content and the videos and the events and everything else that we do is really building towards that. It's really kind of trying to encourage women back themselves, you know, and to really kind of take that leap. without knowing 100% how it's going to work out. Because I think when you have that sort of slight risk and that sense of fear, that's when you can really make a big difference, and that's when you can really succeed. So that's had a huge part to play in my life. I think it's had a huge part to play in my personal brand, if you like. It's definitely something that you know, I feel passionate about, to go back to that point. And I think that comes across in the work that we've done, in the slightly challenging way that we've approached things. Certainly, you know, D&I was not even a term back in Dubai in 2015 when I first thought of hopscotch as an idea, and controversy as well to a certain extent. I think it's okay to be a bit controversial. It's okay to say something that you truly believe in if it can move things forward. So I think those are sort of the elements of my personal brand, and yeah, you know, I head up Hopscotch, and Hopscotch is the embodiment of that in many ways as well.
That's great. And Kelly, you've actually got a tailor-made course, haven't you, about brand you? And I think your underlying principle is about authenticity. So I'd love just for you to explain a little bit about brand you and what you sort of trying to achieve with that.
Yeah, and if there was any word, that was the perfect word, authenticity. So I think, you know, something that I've realized, you know, in the past sort of 15 years of being in business is that what and how I see personal branding now is not necessarily creating a logo, your mission, your vision, your values. Whilst that's a part of it, nowadays, personal brand is how you are showing up on your social media platforms, how you're making an impact on people in the workplace, on your employees, on your clients. So it's all of those aspects. And I think, you know, what I've realized is that whilst building a business, you also need to stand out as a personal brand, because then that also gives another avenue in order to grow your business. And I think as a business owner, you wear so many hats. So I think that's kind of certainly what happened for myself, in the perspective that I wrote a book. That didn't fit in this styling category because it wasn't about style, it was entrepreneurship. I did a TEDx talk, and that was nothing to do with style as well. So then you start sort of doing these, you know, wearing these extra hats that go under your sort of personal brand. So Brand You was really created from helping other entrepreneurs and my own journey, and taking them through the whole process of what are the things that they need to be doing to be making an impact in what they do. So from showing up online, digitally, you know, video content, is it social media content, is it, you know, website, is it articles, what kind of things are out there. One of the tasks that I set everyone to do, and if you ladies haven't done this, it could be a good little project afterwards, is to Google yourself. And I don't mean from the vain perspective, but I mean from, you are who Google says you are. So if you're not happy with what's up there, as in there's not very much about your name, or maybe you think the pictures are terrible, maybe it's time you do a professional photo shoot, you know, all those things, click on videos, what's coming up in search engine optimization. And this is the time, maybe while we've got a little bit more, I say freedom in one sense, but it's not in another sense, but, you know, less sort of constraints in the work sense, that this is the time that you can be building your personal brand. So I'm really excited about it. And talk about passion, that is, you know, because it kind of just brings everything together. It's that style element, it's the business side, and it just sort of packages it nicely. So yeah.
That's great. I think, yeah, it's really, really valid about the authenticity piece. And when I was creating Wild, kind of doing it for myself, I was so fed up of going to sort of really contrived and sterile events where everything was just really safe. And whenever I sort of get speakers for Wild, I say, please be, you know, open, honest, disruptive, controversial, to Helen's point, because it's only by being authentic and real we're really going to be able to inspire. So what's your views on sort of goal setting and journaling, Debbie? Is that something that do you sit and write your goals? What if we had a little snapshot in your journal? What's going on in there?
I don't write journals. I was asked the other day, I was speaking to the students at Amity University, and someone asked me, could I recommend my favourite 5 books? And I couldn't, because I don't read that often. I like to watch movies, but I don't actually read that often. So I don't keep a journal. I have goals in my mind, things I want to achieve. I don't write them down. I challenge myself on and I try to set achievable goals, not ridiculous goals. You know, there's things I'd like to do in the next year. There's things I'd like to do in the next 5 years, the next 20 years, as long as I can keep going. But no, I don't keep a personal journal. I know some people do that and it helps them. Of course, I have set goals, you know, for work, part of your performance. On personal, no, I keep them inside. I keep. There are things I talk about with my husband actually. What do we want to do next year? Where do we see ourselves in the next 5 years? I'm someone constantly looking for a challenge. I'm constantly looking for an opportunity to throw myself into something. I get bored very, very quickly. Sometimes my husband will be a weekend and my husband will say, oh my God, you've got this look on your face, you want to change the furniture around. But I keep things in my mind about things I want to do, want to change, but I don't journal. I try to make things happen. Sometimes they can't always happen. Who would have predicted COVID happening and the impact that it's had on everybody? No one has a manual or a guidebook how we get through this. We're all navigating our own way through it. So this is, you know, this is a challenge I never thought came, and we've all had to adapt. So we all adapt in ways to the best of our ability and in the right way. But yeah, I don't keep a journal. Unfortunately, I'm one of those who keep a journal. It works for some people. It doesn't for me.
What about you, Helen? You look like you're a journaler to me.
I'm not sure what a journaler looks like, so I don't know whether that's a positive or a negative comment, but I'm going to choose it as positive. I am, no, you're completely right. You're absolutely spot on. I probably couldn't be any more opposite to Debbie if I tried. I write everything down. I love writing. It's a big part of my background actually, and my education, and all of my careers have involved writing. So I loved your point, Kelly, about writing a book. It's definitely something I want to do at some point. So maybe I'll pick your brains about that afterwards. And I agree in terms of, you know, the different elements of how your personal brand can come together don't necessarily have to chime with one particular idea. But yeah, sorry, going back to the journaling thing. So yeah, to give you an example, this is my book that I'm working through at the moment. So it is literally to-do list after to-do list after to-do list. I love a to-do list. And I also have kind of longer term goals as well. So every 6 months I'll do my little columns and I'll write underneath them, and they're not super specific because yeah, Debbie, I you know, completely agree. Things change, you know, you have to be super adaptable and super flexible, particularly from a business perspective, and obviously right now. But I feel like writing things down somewhere in my subconscious commits me to that avenue, and it seems to work. And even though I don't physically remember on a daily basis everything that I've written down or have to do, I come back to it in 6 months' time or at the end of the week or whatever it is, and somehow it's kind of been achieved. So yeah, and journaling is something I've kind of come back to, and I'm on and off with it. If I'm having a particularly like rubbish day, putting an entry in my journal does definitely make me feel a bit better. Like it just helps me clarify thoughts and not get too caught up in one perspective or way of thinking. So yeah, I mean, as you say, Debbie, I think, maybe you either are or you aren't, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you achieve more or achieve less. It's just how you approach your life, I suppose, really.
And Kelly, what do you think about goal setting and journaling? I mean, I'm sure I read somewhere once that if you write down 41% of your goals actually come to life if you put them on paper, which is...
Oh, yes.
I mean, I'm a massive writer, journaler as well, just like Helen. So if I'm in a particularly foul mood, I don't really open it. But if if I'm feeling inspired and motivated, I think writing stuff down can be quite a liberating process. So what's your views on that?
Love it, love it, love it, love it. I love a fresh notepad. I moved house like 10 days ago, and I just opened a new notepad, and it was such a nice feeling. So goal setting, yeah, I absolutely love it, just because I can see how far I've come. And again, through this whole moving house, I've kept so much stuff in terms of the personal development. I found notes from my very first coach that I had 2007, all the things that I'd written down, and just reading through it, you forget so much, it's you think you know it, and then you go back and I'm like, oh, wow. So one example, for example, this I read back my notes. 2007, I was doing some Tony Robbins CDs at the time, and I found this 10-day finance challenge, and I'm going to talk about it on my YouTube account. But I thought, I looked through this 10-day challenge that I did, and I was like, wow, that's like really cool, because all the things pretty much had happened. Like one of the things so the whole idea, just to sort of explain it, is you have 10 days, and then each day you pick 3 things that you want to do, or ideas that could generate you an income, save you money, just something that's financially related. And I was like, so I looked back at these things that I'd done in 2007. I was like, wow, like they actually happened. Like I wrote a book, I worked with a luxury department store, like all these things, and it was like you making those things happen for those 10 days. So I was like, I'm going to do that again. So I'm just at the back end of this. So these notes that I found from God knows how long ago, I've just redone. So absolutely, journaling, even from a personal perspective, I remember going through my divorce, and at times, you forget the bad moments and you only remember the good, and then it's like, oh, am I making a mistake? And then just by writing down and remembering the moments, like for me in a personal perspective, it's been really good. But I do it twice a year. I sit down, I've got a booklet that I work through, and things are obviously, I've seen all the memes right now. 5 years ago we didn't plan, what was it, something like 5 years ago no one got where they'd be in 2020, which is pretty true. But no, I love it. Something I'm really passionate about as well.
So let's go on to challenges, and I'd like you to be quite open and honest, which I'm sure you all will be, because talking about passion, purpose, goal setting is all very positive. I think we've spoken a little bit already about what stops women making it to the top. I think very often it can be our own selves, as well as sometimes the environments we're in. But Helen, over the last 10 years, would you say now that different industries are more accepting of women, or do you think there's still a long way to go to have that sort of inclusive piece?
No, I think it's moved on enormously, just since I started Hopscotch. When I think about the conversations that I had to have back in 2016, we launched in kind of April of 2016, so I was talking to businesses probably a year before that, and I had to back up the idea of why it was a good idea for them to have more women in their organisations. I really had to come sort of prepared with that as a pitch almost. It was just almost like, well, we're fine as we are, thanks very much. D&I is a relatively new industry, you know, certainly now, you know, back in 2016, we weren't working with D&I managers, we were just working with HR, you know, we still work with HR now, but that as a kind of department has definitely grown. And just the awareness, I think, of, you know, what's required to move the needle, as well as an understanding that having a more balanced workforce, and I'm not, you know, you're not just talking about women, but just more different perspectives within a workforce increases profitability. I mean, there is report after report after report that backs that up. And it's kind of time, I think, that, you know, thankfully that I don't have to go in and sort of have my pitch where women is concerned available. I think certainly it differs between industries. That's still unfortunately the case. But for bigger multinationals now, you know, they are beholden to their shareholders. They are, you know, there are directives from their HQ to ensure that, you know, there is more equity within the workforce. And of course, you've got things like the Me Too movement from a couple of years ago, which made a massive difference in terms of just accountability, I think, for organisations as well. So things have moved on enormously. There is still a lot of work to do, particularly at senior levels, particularly in the worlds of tech, for example, where you just don't necessarily see the pipeline coming through. And, you know, there are different approaches that we're working on right now to help solve those specific issues for businesses, because there are strategies you can put in place that make, you know, a huge difference where these types of things are concerned. And it's not just training, you know, it's the way that you go about hiring, the way that you go about inclusion once that person's within your organisation. So I would say it's, you know, it's positive, it's moving forwards. There is still work to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had a chat a couple of weeks ago with the ladies from the construction sector, and they represent such a small portion of women, but have all had you know, amazing, rewarding careers. So I think there is still a long way to go to get any kind of gender balance, although I think that a lot more known now. It's not always an educational process where you have to actually tell people what diversity and inclusion is, although it's still quite a complex topic. Debbie, what's your view about, you know, do you think over the last 10 years things have changed for women? Is there still a glass ceiling? I mean, you represent being a CEO, which is a very, very small percentage of women. What's kind of your views surrounding that?
I think things are moving forward. I mean, still there's progress that needs to be made, but remember, we're also, especially here in Dubai, you know, we're living in a society where there are, I think, over 220 different nationalities, different cultures. You can't change historic culture overnight, and the way people approach things. So I'll talk, you know, experience about even some of the employees that we have who have the ability, they have the, because of the way they were brought up, where women weren't really necessarily supposed to have a career. They should get married, look after the family, you know, keep the home nice, etc. And it's not until people sometimes, because of their cultural background, they don't put themselves forward, because it's a change in mindset, and that does take time. But I think we are moving in the right direction. I mean, one thing I get asked all the time, because I live in the Middle East, and they'll say, well, you're a woman, how it must be terrible to be a woman in the Middle East. It's so far removed from the reality. And if I think back, the most opportunities I've had, I moved to the Middle East, first in Bahrain, and then since in Dubai. And I think you have so many strong women in this part of the world, so many strong women, capable women. And I think certainly Dubai and the UAE, you see the opportunities for young female entrepreneurs and the support that they're given. So things are really, really changing. For me, it's important to have gender diversity and balance. It's also important to have the right person doing the right job. So it shouldn't just be about, okay, I want to have this quota of women and this quota of men. You've got to have the right individual for the right role, and you've got to create the right environment for both men and women. You know, there are a lot of working dads who want to have, you know, time with their kids, the sports day. You know, they shouldn't be held back because they're a man. So I think creating an environment that supports family, supports men and women, and yes, we all have different strengths to bring to the table. Sometimes guys are very rash decisions, tend to think more, they rationalize, they, you know, think from different angles, but I think we have different strengths to bring to the table, and when we come together we can create really a super environment for the workspace. So I think we're making waves. Yes, we still have a way to go, but we're getting there. And I think more we have other women supporting other women. So how we are there to support other women, encourage, create that message around gender diversity and inclusion. And so yeah, we have to keep campaigning. But I'm saying that I'm not feminist. I'm not someone who thinks we should only be about women. That's not who I am. It's about having a balanced workforce where both come together and bring different strengths, and we create the right environment for both men and women within the work.
That's great, thank you. I'm going to encourage the audience to type some questions onto the platform, which we will get round to. But I'd like to ask Kelly, have you actually had any challenges being a woman throughout your career?
I think certainly in the early days I did, just because I started a business, you know, back in 2005 when, I don't know, I remember one particular incident where I went to the bank and I asked my friend to come with me, and he was a guy, and the bank manager only spoke to my friend, and my friend kept saying, but it's not me, it's Kelly that has a business. Yeah. And then he would continue to still keep speaking to him, and it was like 2 or 3 times he was like, you know, she is the one that's her business in the name. So I think maybe more so because, you know, what I was doing was, you know, it was personal shopping and styling. You know, men had very little concept of how that would actually run as an operational business, let alone make money. So I think that was sort of a challenge to begin with. But and again, more so just from lack of resources. You know, there wasn't communities like what you've established. There wasn't any of that sort of 15, 16 years ago in the same sense that there is now. So I think there were just more challenges because it was an environment, you know, it was new, but with that came opportunities. So you kind of got to take the rough with the smooth, if you like. But again, not really, not on a whole, and anything. And when it's come to sort of challenges or things that hasn't worked out in business, hasn't worked out for the right reasons. And you know, you can only join the dots afterwards, and you're like, okay, so that wasn't meant to happen because that happened. So yeah, I would say not as much because it all worked the way it's meant to.
Fantastic. So on to sort of leadership and mentoring. What advice would you give to, I guess, the younger you? I've had some fun with this question in the other panel discussion. So what advice would you give to the younger you, or what piece of advice would you give to the audience, Helen?
You know, I mean, I have been asked this question before, and I think my advice has changed every time I've been asked the question, because there are so many different sort of angles to this. I mean, I don't think I would be alone in saying, you know, have confidence in what you're trying to do. Don't be afraid that the way that you're thinking is not the way that 90% of the other people that you know think. Don't second guess yourself on that. Just go for it. Just go with your gut feeling, because it's what you inevitably end up doing anyway. I think to Kelly's point about challenges and perceived failures, I don't believe in failure at all, because it just pushes you further in the right direction. You know, it's almost like fate has just built a wall and said, no, you know, no entry down this path. You need to think again because you're going the wrong way. So I think being older, I have a much better sense of intuition and much better trust of my intuition and my gut feeling. And if there's one thing I could change, it would be to go back and say that, because it's just wasting time otherwise. You know, you're just wasting time, and that can be years sometimes. So, you know, yes, it would be around intuition and gut feeling, kind of trusting yourself, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think success isn't always in a straight line. It can often be the detours or the bumps in the road that can actually lead to something great, you know. So I think definitely that's a very valid point. And what about you, Kelly? What advice would you give to the younger you, or a bit of advice for the audience? We're getting a few questions popping up, so I'll get round to those in a second. But yeah, what would be your advice?
I think it's along the confidence piece. And I think, again, that's something that, you know, probably goes with age, and we get a bit more comfortable, and we've touched on that a little bit. Age and experience, you know, when we've got to it. So for me, it would be stop worrying what other people think.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think in the fashion world, certainly throughout the kind of my late 20s and into my kind of mid 30s, like I was very conscious of, you know, a lot of things in terms of, you know, what would people say, and now it's not I don't care. That's not the case, because that's the wrong approach as well, to not care in a sense. But you know, because everyone does, you know, just worry. No, so I don't even mean that. I just think it's a case of it goes back to the authenticity piece. You know, so I think it is that when you're the real, be you, and then you don't worry about what other people think. So I think that would be more of my younger self. Just be you all the time, all the time. And not everyone's going to like you. I think that was, I don't know what, I read that recently, but it's that whole thing, like, you know, you want everyone to like you. When you realize that not everyone's going to like you, and it's okay, it sort of takes a bit of the pressure off, because it's just human nature. You don't like everyone for whatever reason, that they don't resonate with you, or this wasn't right, or they said this. Like, not everyone's going to resonate. You're not going to resonate with them. And I think when you've got that, so I kind of take the pressure off. It's okay.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, actually, staying true to who you are and not caring what other people think. I think that's really important. Debbie, so what advice would you give to the younger you, or advice to our audience?
I think very much what Helen and Kelly have said about being true to yourself. Always be true to yourself, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. You know, that's part of your journey. That's part of your story. Every part of your journey, you have a different chapter.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid. You are going to make mistakes. I've made mistakes. I've made bad decisions, but it's how you turn those bad decisions around to a positive and move on from that. So yes, having confidence. As I said, I had very little confidence when I was younger. So about believing in myself, having confidence. You know, whatever you do, do it with passion. And if you're given an opportunity, seize that opportunity. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if you haven't tried, you'll live with regret, and you don't want to live your life with regret. So take those challenges, learn by your mistakes. You know, you pick yourself up when something goes wrong. You pick yourself up. We've all been there. You know, we've all learned from our mistakes. So they would be some of the things that I would say to my younger self.
So a couple of questions. Would you encourage me as an entrepreneur to open my new F&B business now? So I'm not sure who wants to answer that, but I guess, yeah, it's an open question to all panelists. So would you convince someone to sort of open a new business now?
I would go in and maybe say from the perspective is there needs to be an online element. So I think if you're wanting to go down the sort of traditional route of bricks and mortar and people coming, I just think the way people are going to do things are very different now. So I think that there needs to be that level of consideration that if you were planning to do exactly the same as what you were pre-COVID-19, then I think you might need to look at adjustments. That would just be my thoughts, but I don't know if any of the other girls have anything else to kind of add to that in that sense.
Yeah, I think reinventing and adapting to the situation is kind of quite key, isn't it? Like you say.
But
sorry, Debbie.
Don't you feel that, also times like this, it's like when you go back to the financial crisis, the economic downturn in 2008 and 9. Most creative companies were founded at that time. So I think it's about innovation, looking for a niche. I think using this time, I think even as Helen just said, adapting to sort of what people want. It might be the traditional way of doing business. Maybe online is the way, but I think people still want to have experience. Instagram, WhatsApp, they were both founded 2009, they're at now. So I think if ever there's a time to set up a business and be an entrepreneur, it's right now, but you have to be creative, you have to innovate, you have to look for a niche. And look for, look for a niche, but don't be afraid to set up business. I think this is where you'll see many, many startups happening right now.
Yeah.
Think about ideas, or think about what's missing, what they would like to have that's missing right now. I think this time to reflect has given people the ability to do that.
I'm going to just...
Yeah, I would... sorry, go on.
Sorry, Helen.
So no, I just to add to that, really, I mean, I would say also, like, don't listen to the fear factor too much. This time will pass. I think the key element of setting up any business is getting your product market fit right. And right now, the market is kind of all over the place, and nobody really knows what that market will look like in the future. So whilst it would be a great time to start a brand, if you have a specific idea around what your F&B business is, how it's different, as Debbie said, something that is a niche and is fulfilling a market need, then brilliant. But I think kind of, you can expect bumps in the road because nobody really knows what that particular market specifically will be like in 3 months' time or 6 months' time or even a year's time. So I would be cautious, but I wouldn't be fearful about it.
There's quite a long question here, but I've read it and I feel compelled to give it answered. So it's from a lady called Samantha, and she's thanked us all for this platform for coming today. So a lot of what we've said has resonated with her. She's got a degree in psychology, a commercial pilot's license, but couldn't materialise a career due to the quota for women. So reskilled with hospitality degree, had a child, passionate about so many areas of her life, know there's more to give, want to experience the potential. What do you think holds her back? How can she be top of her game? It looks like this lady has lots of different things. She needs help identifying her motivation and funneling her wandering mind. So, I mean, my advice would be to get focused and really get a bit more aligned with what it is you really, really want to do. But anyone got any ideas? It's a bit of a complex question. It's quite long to read on here. But Kelly, have you got any thoughts on this? Lady said, there's more to give. I want to experience that potential. I need a mentor to help identify and motivate my funnel and wandering mind. what holds me back from being top of my game?
Well, I think first of all, having a mentor would be a great place to start, because it's that sort of, they don't hold the answers, but they will push you into not push you, that's not even right, but guide you into asking you the questions so that you can make the decision yourself. And I think maybe from what I got from what Samantha was saying, that there's so many things that she's passionate about. And often when we can't decide, it's because there's overwhelm and there's lack of clarity. So there's the lack of clarity piece because there's so many ideas. What should I pick? What if I pick the wrong thing? What if that's not right? And I imagine that will be the sort of thought process that's going through. And I guess my thoughts would be, pick one, okay? Because that one will lead to something else, and that might not be the right one, but doors might open from that, or something else will lead, or you will try, or what have you. So I would definitely say, one, get a mentor, get someone to push you in the direction of asking questions so that you can pick one and then start a journey on that, and then you never know where it might end up.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, perhaps Samantha would want to consider one of your cool courses. The Brand You could be quite interesting.
And it depends what industry she's going into, but and maybe more on that. But there's certainly so many people out there. YouTube has a whole host of things that you can watch to be inspired. There's like podcasts, loving podcasts just now, and it's a great source of inspiration, hearing other people's stories, and it will sort of ignite and lead to something else.
That's
sorry Emma, I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry. No, just a very quick practical point on that, because we actually did a live workshop a couple of weeks ago with a lady called Heidi Jones, who's one of our life and career coaches, and you can find it on our YouTube channel, and it's specifically about visions and goals, full visions and goals in 2 parts. If you go to hopscotch.work on YouTube, you'll find it. And I say this because I always participate in these things as well when we do them. And so I wrote down mine. It massively helped kind of clarify things for me as well. So I would definitely recommend that. And as Kelly says, there's a ton of this stuff on YouTube. It's not just on our channel by any stretch. But hopefully that specifically might be a good kind of first step.
Awesome. Well, we have run out of time. We've had some lovely comments pop up as well. Thank you, Winnie, who said thanks to everybody. She's found this really inspiring. So I'd like to thank all of the ladies. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. The session is recorded, so I'll be posting it. And obviously stay safe and stay wild. So thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.